On December 8th. My name is Billie Hjort. I am the Pacific Region Women's Affinity Group Chairperson. Welcome to today's very special executive keynote featuring Cummins President and COO Rich Freeland. This event will be recorded and made available on our SharePoint for anybody who's not able to attend the live session. And Scott, I'm getting your instant message. Oh, and I see that the presenter screen is showing. So let me try. Is that better? Yep. Everybody see just the cover sheet there? All right. In the interest of preserving time for our main event, I'll quickly turn this over to Pacific Region President Greg Ellinger, who will proceed with introduction. Thank you so much, Greg, and thank you, Rich, for joining us today.
Billy, thank you, and good afternoon to everyone. This is a real big deal that we've got Rich for the next hour or so. As most everybody I hope knows, Rich is responsible for our daily operations at Cummins across the globe to make sure that we support the financial, customer, and operating commitments we make to our many stakeholders. Close your eyes for a moment. That means that Rich is responsible for about 55,000 employees in about 75 countries who speak about 100 native languages and supporting customers in about 190 countries. Every day, 24 hours a day. So with that in mind, you can open your eyes. I'm just really thrilled that Rich carved out time today for us to help us figure out how we can play a better role in all that. Rich joined Cummins, I think, 38 years ago. Since then, he's had a leadership position in most every one of our business units, including distribution. So he's one of the folks in Indiana who understands what we do. And as you might imagine, for someone in Rich's position, he's been a leader in not only at Cummins, but in industry and in community service organizations. In the last few years, I've had some personal experience seeing Rich's leadership roles, both visibly and behind the scenes, to enable employees at all levels of the company live out our core values, including those that we focus on with the Women's Employee Research Group of excellence, teamwork, and inclusion. Over the past several years, Rich has been a very visible leader, providing opportunities for employees and those in our communities to reach their full potential. So, Rich, if you're set, and with no further ado, again, I'm thrilled that you were able to take some time to help us and appreciate that. And are you all set?
I'm good, Greg.
Good. Thanks, Rich.
Okay. Well, Greg, thank you for that very nice introduction. When you described my job, it scared me a little bit. So I guess. But anyway, it's good. It's good to be able to talk to folks. I know it'd be nice to be in person, but I think it's good to use the technology. What I thought I was going to do today is cover just a little bit about myself and talk about kind of how I view my past I have working with women, both in a family standpoint, kind of form some of my opinions, and which are continuing to form. And then talk about how Cummins views diversity kind of broadly, and in particular kind of on the gender perspective, what we're talking about today. And then I'll touch a little bit on our mission, vision, values. So I think that's been rolled out, and you've seen that, but I wanted to just give just a couple minutes, my importance to that. And then probably more important than anything I'm going to say, I'll open it up for questions. So again, I'm looking forward to doing this. I've had some experience with the DVU. Like Greg said, in 2005, I was in the job that Tony Satterthwaite's in today. So I was leading the distribution business, and we were really just forming it back then. So I had the opportunity to spend a lot of time in the field, appreciate what you all do. I know how hard the jobs are. You're on the front line to customers, and so again, thanks for checking in. And let's go ahead and move to the next slide, Billy. And is that up? Okay, so let me just describe a little bit what's on that slide. So on the left-hand side, those are my parents. which is part of kind of forming, I think, the values that at least I try to live to today. But I grew up in northern Indiana, so about 100 miles south of Chicago, on a small farm. So it was about a 100-acre farm, and that crew on the right side of the picture is the 8 of us kids, as we were called. The 10 of us grew up on that farm, and kind of learned some of the values from my parents of hard work. Both of my parents, we farmed, but in a farm kind of that size, you also had jobs. So my dad worked in a factory, a foundry, about an hour and a half away, and my mom, as soon as my younger brother got in kindergarten, she went to school working on an administrative job. And so I kind of learned a little bit about the power and the capability of women growing up that way. My mom ran the house. There was no question about that. Like I said, she worked full time. She was the decision maker in the family. She's the one that told me, you need to go to college. At that point, I was number 7. That was something that wasn't common where we grew up. People stayed on the farm and worked on the farm. So I grew up in an area of every family I knew had 8, 9, 10. We were not a large family. We were an average family. So a bunch of kind of mostly German Catholic immigrants that lived in this area where I grew up. So a little bit of a connection to large families. But again, but I grew up with kind of no confusion on the abilities of women as leaders, kind of observing my mom and trying to copy what she did. The second I saw, lost opportunities in a sense. And then my sisters really weren't, in the environment we grew up in, weren't given the same opportunities. So the girls in the family were not given the same opportunities as boys, at least in my view. And so, my sisters kind of thought of, kind of women-only fields that they would work in. And so be it, at that time, secretary or more administrative jobs. One of my sisters did a little bit of a couple of years of nursing school, but these are very smart, capable women. 4 of my sisters have gone on as adults and got degrees, kind of on their own. My one sister got her degree when she turned 8. She was 53 when she got it. So they worked and looked through that. I just saw kind of the power of women and also the lost opportunity, for women. And my sisters, they could be on the job I'm on today had they been given that opportunity. In fact, I call them it's not unusual that I'll call them if I have questions or trying to struggle through something. If I think about women in the workforce and the capability of women, at least I did have the opportunity to see that capability and seeing where it wasn't fully taken advantage of, which kind of is, I'm a bit slow, but it's helped direct my thinking as I've moved into leadership roles in industry. So the next slide, I don't know if that's come up yet, Billie. Do you see it?
Yes, one moment here. I think our link might be a little weak. Katie is requesting control, so hopefully that fixes it.
Okay. Is it up now?
I believe so.
Okay. So this picture is the picture on the left is me with my 2 daughters. So I'm still surrounded by strong, powerful women. And I didn't show my wife in the pictures, but I also had my wife of 38 years. So I think that it's helped form my thinking, make me a better employee, make me a better person. But my daughters now are both in the professional workforce. So I've got one daughter that lives in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Both of them went to business school. I have another daughter in Louisville, Kentucky, and so they, and quite frankly, they challenge me. Like, here's issues as working. They're both mothers now. issues that working mothers have in the workforce, they're asking me, hey, we have this problem at work. How do you guys handle that at Cummins? And so it's forced my thinking. And then on the right is a 3-year-old granddaughter. And so the theme continues, with being kind of surrounded by women. But I will say I have 2 grandsons now, so my daughter that lives in Minneapolis has 2 little grandsons. So that's a little bit of kind of my background, in at least helping form my thinking. And then I'll touch on how I think that's played out and what I think, the company we ought to be thinking of. So the next slide, Billie. And Greg touched on this, so I just want to talk about we're a diverse company by definition. We're in 62 countries, many languages. We've got lots of diversity councils, affinity groups, but we have a lot of diversity in our company, and it just comes by nature of being a global company. And so part of our whole challenge is how do we bring all that together and build on all that capability to outperform the other folks. And so you can go ahead and move to the next slide, and kind of we'll talk about the business case for diversity. And I think simply the way I think of this, and I'd say my thinking continues to evolve on this, but we actually don't have a choice on diversity. You saw the complexity of our company on multiple continents, multiple businesses, multiple languages, gender diversity. So we are diverse. So it doesn't matter whether we want to be diverse or we should be diverse. If we're going to operate as a global company, we are diverse. And so my view is the company that can recruit the best workforce, develop and include that workforce from the broadest population possible. So they got access to the best people. They're not limited only to a small group of people, so only men, only certain countries. But whoever can get the best workforce, develop them, utilize them, get their full potential, is going to win. And organizations that limit the scope of their employees, or don't fully utilize the diversity of the workforce, will lose to those that are more open. And it's just gotten clearer and clearer to me, as I think about who we compete with and what advantage we may have versus them to compete, because we compete with really good companies. And, we don't have unique tools, or we don't have unique facilities, or we don't have, we use the same test cells, we use the same machining equipment, we use the same, vans and work bays to repair things. It's only which company can put their group of people together and solve problems for customers a little better than the other one. And so, to me, it all comes down to who gets the best people, and who has those people energized and excited about getting their work done will win in the long term. And so this is not new to Cummins. We've had this goes back to Mr. Miller, this whole idea of truly valuing every worker, that each piece of it plays a role, and that every worker can bring their full selves to work every day will win. And for the most part, that's what it's allowed us to be around for 98 years. While not perfect, and I see issues every day that we're not living up to this, I think the idea that we strive for it and we challenge each other for it, and our people call out leaders when we don't do it, makes us a better company. So I'm just convinced that if we can bring the most diverse group of people together, long term, we will win. And I think you just look at the companies that are around now that weren't around 50 years ago. I think we've followed through on that pretty well. And so, just I think I've said most of this, but I think bringing a diverse workforce fosters more innovation. If you got people that think differently, that bring different skill sets, different experiences, you're going to be a more innovative company. There's been lots of actual statistical numbers ran that companies that are more diverse, be it in gender or along other dimensions, financially outperform companies that aren't. So actually, there's been enough. You can go to the next slide, Billy. Enough, actually empirical data that says diverse companies outperform those that are less diverse, which, as I said, should not be surprising. I think it's clear, it's been my experience, that satisfaction goes up with more diversity. And so, again, we've seen some of that even inside our companies as we do this. And lastly, we actually get a competitive advantage, so we can win in the marketplace if we do it. So I guess one is we are diverse. We don't have a choice. Okay, so if you didn't want to work you don't have a choice if you work here, because society is diverse. 50% of the people are women, 50% are men. Okay, so we're going to operate in diverse environments. The whole idea of embracing that diversity and using it as an advantage and not something you're fighting is part of our core beliefs as a company. And again, this isn't a 2017 initiative for the company. This goes back 50 years to Mr. Millett. This whole concept of, even down to his standpoint, that the person working second shift block line brings a perspective that the manager doesn't have. And listening to that perspective, in that case, he talked about the wisdom of the workforce. And so companies that take in all the knowledge you have in the workforce and utilize it will outperform others. So it's part of our heritage. I think, it's something you strive for to live up to every day. So it's not, so I try not to think of it as kind of the cliche of the month or the whatever. It just makes sense that we work in diverse environments. We want to respect all people. No one's better than anyone else. We all have unique skills and abilities. We're all, most of the things that we work on require a team to fix. The problems are complex. So almost everything we do gets done as a team. So if you can bring these diverse teams together and get people to work together and do it just a little bit better than the guys you compete with, or the companies you compete with, long term you win. And so that's why, so this isn't like a social initiative on embracing diversity. There's actually, at least in my mind, a real strong business case that says if we do this well, we win. And so a little bit just on gender diversity, which is part of what we're talking about today. And I think as a company, we've done, we really started getting serious about gender diversity, at least in my mind. I've been here 38 years now, but probably, we talked about it a lot for a long time, but I would say we actually started taking actions, probably about 15 years ago, about, really seriously saying we want to be a leader in bringing, in gender representation in the company. And what we've said long term is that 50% of the population, is women, 50% men, that our workforce ought to look like the populations that we operate in. So longer term, there's no reason it wouldn't be 50-50. In fact, I think the most recent numbers are, for example, for professionally, over 50% of the college graduates now are women versus men. So we've made some progress in this. We're still short of 50%. I think you see the numbers there, but right at 26% of our global workforce is women. Leadership roles, that's a little bit smaller. In our functions, so you think about the HR, legal, finance, et cetera, we're a little bit higher. But we've been making progress on this, and it's been growing, about 1% a year on this. So it isn't this won't be made up overnight. Experience is important in this company, so we'll have to build this over time. But what I would say is it's happening, and it is it's noticed, for example, even with our customers. I just came back from Komatsu. I spent a lot of time with PACCAR, two really good companies, two of our biggest customers. In each case, their senior leaders have come to me and said, the people that you bring in front of us, there is so much more diversity. And in particular, talk about gender representation. And we've just got some terrific people working on these accounts. In both cases, they've come to us and said, we'd like to benchmark from you on how we can do this. Okay? And again, these are not companies, if you've worked with PACCAR or Komatsu, that are the most, I think, progressive thinking along this line. But what they're seeing is, wow, you have some talented people, and it's something they're looking at it from a business case, saying, we are, and they said we're underutilizing women in our companies, and so they both have come and benchmarked us, and they've seen the results we get. I think it's a good example. We outperform. Those two great companies, we outperform, not only because of this, but I'm convinced this is a piece of the answer. And so we've got a ways to go on this. I just see us getting to be a better and better company. And the thing I've noticed here, this is now happening pretty naturally. So I would say 15 years ago, and those of you who've been around for a while, this was really, Tim Solso took this on, this initiative, this whole business case for diversity, and said, let's start with really two lines: gender diversity and international representation. He said, half of our sales are outside the U.S., half are inside. Half the population is men, half the population is women. We ought to drive to get to those numbers. And it took a lot of kind of extra special efforts for a long time. But I think right now, I think this is going to happen. This move to 50% over some period of time is going to happen because we've got talented people. The inflows look like this. And if you're not moving this way, I guarantee as a company or even as a distributor or as a department, you're going to fall behind those that are. You're just missing out on too much talent. So again, I'm actually proud of what we've done here. And there's not, it's interesting. We pushed a little bit on moving more women into leadership roles, when they're ready for them. And what's happened is you just see it. Once that happens, that the opportunity for more women to come into those roles also happens. And so a lot of we've had historically, these are men, male-dominated roles or female-dominated roles. And once you break past those barriers and you bring good people in, you support them, they deliver, it just opens up more and more of that happens over time. So again, I think to get things moving, it takes the leadership getting involved and paying attention to this and saying, we're committed to having a diverse workforce because it's part of our business case to outperform the other folks. So what I've observed is in any individual organization, it takes some stimulus to get this started. Once it's started, it won't go back. I mean, actually, Tom and I were talking the other day, and just the sustainability on this. I remember early on we had to say when we had promotions, whatever, are there any women on the list, and force people to put together kind of diverse rosters for jobs. We don't have to do that anymore. It just happens very naturally once we've been given the opportunity to people. So this one will continue, and it's the right thing. It's the right thing to do for the company. It's the right thing to do for society. And I've gotten more clear to that with having two daughters and talk about the issues they face in the workforce. And I think things can be kind of tough, and but slowly but surely, I think this is changing, across the country and across industry. So next slide, Billie. So as it comes up, I just want to touch quickly on, we've rolled out our new mission, vision, values, and I just want to touch on each of the values here for just a second. And so we did a little bit of work on these and changed them slightly, so I wanted to give my flavor to them. But, it starts with integrity. That hasn't changed. And it's kind of, again, I think part of, who we are. You do the right thing. You do what you said you're going to do. You stand, which includes standing behind your products, et cetera. And so this whole idea of integrity and trying to drive that all the way through the culture of the company, we don't want to lose. We just talked about diversity, and we've added the idea of inclusion. So it's one thing to create a diverse workforce. Second, there's some work to do to say, does the person, especially if you're a minority in any way, do you feel included, and do you feel confident, and do you feel you can bring your whole self to work, and the people value your input, which is a harder challenge sometimes than just doing the diversity. So we wanted to include that, add that, the whole idea of inclusion. We've added a value around caring, and the idea of kind of looking out for each other, how both our employees, our customers, our communities, but that we reach out beyond just being there, but actually more of an empathetic caring for each of those. We talk about excellence, so it's beyond just it's delivering superior results, but it's also just excellence in everything you do. This idea of if you're going to do the job, do it well and do it to your fullest. And again, these are all aspirational values that we want to have individually and collectively. And last, the whole idea of teamwork, which I think, and I've been here 38 years, I think the reason I've stayed at this company 38 years, that I really value working in an organization that values teamwork. I grew up that way. When you grow up on a small farm, you got to figure out how to work together as a team when you got you got one bathroom and 5 sisters. That's so there's the one example. But we worked on the farm. We shared equipment with neighbors. Those farms aren't big enough to have equipment, and so it's just how I want to work. So I don't want to work in an organization, and there's some real good organizations where you're competing with the person you sit next to, and there's a winner and there's a loser. I want to work for a company that says let's pull together and let's win against the competition, and let's pull together and make our customers successful. And so I think these values, these are not new. These are values that have been there for a long time. But what we want to do is we got a lot of new people in the company, and we wanted to refresh these and make sure that everyone clearly understands it. I think the number I heard and gets repeated, I think it's still true, that across the company about 50% of our employees now have been here less than 5 or 6 years. And so we've got I think what makes this a great company, one of the things are these values on how we work. And so those of you who've been here longer, help them make sure the newer people understand these and understand what they really mean. And you live them yourself and you behave them yourself, and so it becomes part of kind of who we are as a company. And then lastly, and then I'll open it up for questions, just touch on, our mission. So making people's lives better by powering a more prosperous world. So again, built around people, on making, which sounds a little audacious as one company, but how do you make the world a better place? But it's in lots of ways. One is by taking care of companies, providing equipment that solves problems in the world, but also just in employing 55,000 people, in creating jobs and creating opportunities. And those people are investing in their kids and their communities, and so you're getting a leverage point from that. So I view one of my, jobs as a leader is creating jobs and creating opportunities for us. And then lastly, our visions and what we want to accomplish is, innovating for our customers. So how do you do that? Is you innovate for the customers and then power their success. So again, I know Greg's probably done some work on this, or has, or will be doing some work on rolling out this mission and vision values. For those who've been around for a while, it's going to be a reminder of what we aspire to. For those of you that are newer to the company, it's helping them understand what I think is kind of the secret sauce behind, making a diesel engine, why, or being a tier 1 supplier in many cases, how we can survive for 98 years and do it a little better than other folks. So I want to just get, I went on a little longer than I intended to, but let me just stop there. I think, Greg, we're set up. We can take a few questions. Is that right?
Yes, sir. I have a few questions that are pre-asked. I got quite a few here, and we'll start from the top, and I doubt we'll be able to get through all of them. But the first one really ties in well with the email we all received from Mr. Lineberger this morning from Greg Ellinger. And it is, Rich, in light of the disturbing revelations that have come about in the past couple months about inappropriate gender treatment in the workplace, but acknowledging our strong and long-standing commitment to our core values and fair treatment, about what and where do you worry most about our practices?
It's a good question and a timely one. I think it's a question of what I worry about. I don't think I'm naive, but I think our culture, it's understood this idea of treating everyone with dignity and respect at all times. I think that's generally part of our core and how our people operate. But does that happen 100% of the time in 100% of the occasions? No. Where there's 55,000 humans working here, and so the idea of will there be issues? I think the answer is probably yes, despite the fact that we would want zero of this. And so, what I try to do is continue, and like Tom sent out today, is reinforce what's expected. If you want to be an employee here and want to strive here and want to advance here, we try to create an environment where it's safe. That if you do have an issue, it could be around the most recent things, but it could just be a toxic boss, or whatever that is. It's not someone not living up to the values that were stated here. We try to make it safe for people to raise the issue. Okay, and part of laying out the values publicly kind of raises the stakes that you're going to live up to it, and your people will hold you to those. So being public about what we desire to be as a company, I think, is really important. And then, the idea that our people will expect it of leaders and will expect it of each other, and you got processes in place to raise it. If there are exceptions, and again, there likely will be. Okay, with 55,000 employees, but what we're going to do if there are, we'll address it quickly. We'll make it safe for the person raising the issue. We'll get to the bottom of it, and the idea of most of the effort goes around prevention, on saying here's how we want to operate, here's how we expect to operate. We're going to hold each other accountable. If something doesn't seem right, you feel safe to address it right to the person. So I'm hoping that we don't look like Congress, or I'm sure we don't, quite frankly, joking aside. But we will address issues when they happen, and we will continue to be pretty public with folks on that it's safe to raise issues, and we'll deal with them quickly.
Thank you. Next question is from Joe Wynn out of Irvine, California, and his question is, with all that you do on a day-to-day basis and with your many responsibilities, how do you get everything done that needs to be done both at work and at home?
Okay, well, first of all, probably I don't. That's either my boss or my wife. But I don't think I'm unique, okay? I think Cummins people that I've seen that come here, they work hard, and they're involved in their families, and they're involved in their churches, and they're involved in their communities, and so yes, I'm oversubscribed potentially, but I don't think I'm unique in that. I think and I was that way when I worked second shift and hired into the company 38 years ago. So what I do try to do is, and I guess I'd encourage other folks, I do try to think of this as life or work as more of a marathon than a sprint, which means you can't always do everything. You're going to have to make some trade-offs, and you've got lots of stakeholders, like I talked about, family, your boss, your customers, your school, your kids, your community, your parents. It's a long list that we all have, and so I do consciously try to keep some balance in that, and I try to be. I also try to recognize there's certain times you're going to have to go all in on. You're going to have to go heavier on some of those than others. So big important thing going on at work, and telling the other stakeholders, this is going to be a crazy 2-month period, and I'm going to be there. Or I've done the same thing at work. When my parents were going through some illness, and said, I'm going to trade off some things at work, and the right thing to do right now is to be there to support my parents. And so I think just understanding that we all have lots of stakeholders. We're going to, it's kind of a wave. You're going to be in and out of some of those at different times, and there's going to be some really important times that you can't let any of them get away from you. I think it's just good life advice. And I had a couple early bosses that kind of told that, gave that advice to me. not that specifically, but when things came up, they said, you need to focus on, I'm going to need you here. You're going to be working 7 days a week for the next 2 or 3 months. You need to be careful to, understand, how you're going to work that out at home. And I've had the same thing when I've had bosses say, when there's something at home, you need to take care of that first. We understand that. The rest of the team will cover for you. I think if you can create that kind of environment, one, yourself, that you want to manage multiple stakeholders, and two, if you can work it out with your team that we're all going to have ebbs and flows, and you think of it as over a long period of time. Because I think if you let any one of those stakeholders go and you don't take care of them well, if you don't take care of work when you need to, you won't keep your job. If you don't take care of your family, you can have issues there. So I think the idea, at least for me, thinking of it like a stakeholder model, think about you gotta invest in each of the ones that you care about, and then third, you gotta think about there'll be ebbs and flows to that, and how you talk through each of those stakeholders, how you do it. And again, I'm making it sound like it's real scientific, but I have tried to keep some of those. And I had an example where when my kids were in high school and they were involved in sports and activities, and I turned down a couple jobs that were going to have a lot of travel involved in them. And people said that may affect your career, because this is really experience you need to get. And I said, no, I understand that, but I want to be able to go to their volleyball match on a Thursday night, okay, and I don't want to be traveling on that. So I made some trade-offs on that, through my career, just saying that was an important time for me to be, I wanted to be home those nights. So you'll each have some of those. Wouldn't say I do it perfectly, and I'd say certainly over 38 years I've messed some of those up, I know, but I think stopping back and thinking about it a little bit and paying attention to it. In fact, someone asked the question, I think, is a good thing. So thanks, really good question.
All right, next question is from Rick Garlitz out of Coburg, Oregon, and his question is, with the recent acquisition of Bramo and electric vehicle technology, it is great to see Cummins staying ahead of the competition. What other markets and technology is Cummins considering for the future, and will there be other acquisitions?
Okay, really good question. So here's how I'm thinking about, where we stand kind of in the company right now. Over the last 15 years, we've had some really nice growth in the company. And what we've tried to do as a company is say, what are the macro trends that are out there? And then how can we build capability so we can grow, faster than kind of what GDP is. And so if you think back 15 years ago, we made 3 or 4 pretty big investments. We said, hey, the obvious one many of you deal with is, emissions criteria around the globe are going to go up. And that's when we said, hey, we want to really invest in components technologies. So we want to be good in after treatment and in turbos and in fuel systems. So we invested pretty heavily in those technologies to be able to catch that wave as emissions were going up. So we got where we didn't just sell an engine, we sold an engine plus a $6,000 after treatment that had a $1,000 turbo on it, for example. So we could grow faster than kind of our markets are growing. We also said we knew that at that time, China, India, Russia, and Brazil were going to go faster than the rest of the world. So we made some pretty big investments in those areas. Okay, so what we've tried to do is, those are just 2 examples, to say what are the trends growing and how do we build capability so that we can capture those trends. And so I think right now there's a few different trends. And one that we already acted on was in the area of the powertrain and then transmissions. We said, hey, it's getting more and more important to integrate not just engine and the after treatment, but also the transmission. If you're going to be doing, eventually autonomous vehicles or, doing look ahead, do all that kind of work and get the fuel economy. So we made the investment with Eaton and formed the joint venture that we now are in the transmission business. The other thing, you read the paper and what's going on in the area of electrification, which was embedded in your question. And our view is, the electrification is coming. It's coming to some of our markets sooner. It's coming to some of our markets later, and maybe some of our markets never. But generally, it's coming. And what we've committed to be is the power supplier to our customers. And we said that power supplier, whether it's diesel, natural gas, hybrid, or electric, EV, we're going to have that technology available for us. So that was the investment in trying to get good in electrification. Bramo was one small piece of that equation. So we said, what technologies do we need to have if we're going to be a leader in electrification? And so, they're in the battery pack business. They have customers today, which is Toyota, or the Raymond division of Toyota. And so it's an idea where we can build capability faster by acquiring it, okay, and then actually get some revenue and some experience in this business. So you'll see us making acquisitions. That one is really to buy some capability. There's not that many battery pack experts in the world, and we don't have them here at the company. We've got lots of capabilities. We've got a ton of technology, capabilities around electrification. We don't have that, so we went out and we purchased that. But we're also going to we're looking at some other areas of growing the business. We think big engines is an opportunity. So we've done our hedgehog, so that's an in-house solution that we continue to roll out. But we're also looking, are there some other acquisitions that could be made? We think we're good in the big, the big engine territory, the things that will not be replaced by electrification. And again, there's not a long list of people out there to look at acquiring, but we're looking at the list on that side. And also looking in the components businesses. Are there some more acquisitions where we could buy more components, either adjacent, either engines, or could use our distribution network to flow things through? So we're going to continue to invest in areas to grow the business. And philosophically, the belief is we want to continue to grow. So we're committed to continuing to take on new adjacent business to grow. And my belief is, again, back to the company with the best people wins, that people want to work for a company that the company is investing back in products, investing back in their people, and the best people want to work for a company like that. And so if we're not investing back in the company and providing growth opportunities, both for our people and therefore their families, that we'll lose those best people to other companies. And so we are committed to growth. The good news is we sit with a very strong balance sheet, a lot of cash, on hand, a really solid business that generates cash. So we have the ability to reinvest and do that. So I think you'll continue to see over the next 2 to 3 years, kind of alluded to your questions, additional acquisitions that the company will make, which is kind of new. We haven't been in the acquisition business for a while. It's not that we've never been in it. We bought the turbo business back many years ago. We bought Nelson Industries. We bought Onan at one time. But we've not been a big player in that, and we will not be what's the right word? We won't be a careless player in it. We won't be an overly aggressive. We'll continue to be the conservative company that says we're only going to look for the right things that fit, that allow us to add to our capabilities, to grow, that build off the things we do well. So it won't be acquisitions in non-adjacent stuff. Okay, so but I think it's kind of exciting that we're back in that business again. The base business will continue to grow. So we've got some good growth, good profits in the base business, and we'll just keep laying some things on top of that. And again, the most visible and the biggest one being that transmission business, which is going to be, we see that growing to about $1 billion business over the next 5 years. It's going to be a really exciting new addition to the portfolio. So thanks. So good question.
Do we have time for one more? It's 12:45.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead. Let's do one more.
Great. This question is from Sylvia Vivier out of Irvine, California. And hers is, what is the best advice you have been given in your career and why?
Okay. Let me think so. I would say a piece of advice I was given and I give to others, like including like my kids as they're in the workforce, is truly understand yourself. Like be authentic to yourself, both your strengths and your weaknesses. And then I recommend that people, which might sound a little counter, I'll explain, is you play to your strengths. Like find out what you're good at, which is usually what you like doing also, and get really good at it. Like, be outstanding at something. And so, because I think you'll perform better, you'll be happier, you'll have more opportunities. It doesn't mean that you don't continue to learn and you don't understand what your weaknesses are and you get better at them. But the idea that you play to your strengths, I think works well. And I give an example for me. I went to school and I studied kind of a combination of engineering and operations. And when I came to Cummins, I graduated in 1979. It was a really good year. In the global economy was good, U.S. economy was good anyway. So there were lots of offers out there, even for a fairly mediocre student at the time. And so Cummins gave me two offers, one in the tech center to be an engineer and one to work in the plant. And the job in the plant was second shift, a warehouse, to be a supervisor, second shift warehouse. And it's a little bit where I got some advice. I took it was what I really liked doing. I grew up, my dad worked in the factory. I spent my summers working in factories. I related well to people that worked in plants. I enjoyed doing that. And I decided, even though it was not maybe the most glamorous job, to take that job versus, and I'm convinced if I would have went to be an engineer, I would have been an okay engineer. I would have worked hard, but it was hard for me. It wasn't so much fun. It paid a little more at the time, but it just wasn't my thing. And so I'd like to say I was very thoughtful when I did that. It was not so thoughtful. It was more, I think I'd like this better, so I'll just go do it. But I think it actually was good advice. And I think I turned out to be not so bad at that kind of work. So I think the idea of doing something you like doing. I don't know. You read the stuff and play to your passions. I don't know if I had a passion around working second shift at the warehouse, but I knew I'd be good at it, and I enjoyed doing it, and I didn't hate going to work every day, and I knew I'd invest and get better at it. So that'd be my advice, along with being open to continue to know what you're not so good at, and I think you have to, as a person, if you're going to work at a company a long time, be open to reinventing yourself, learning new skills, adding to your, and the senior employees that do that are just so valuable to the company because they have all this experience, yet they're open to learn new ideas, learn new things. Those are the really valuable and seems to be more happy employees that we have here at the company. Okay, so with that, did you have something else going for today?
No, not for today. I realize that we're up against the clock, and we do appreciate your time. So I assume that we are done with questions. It's close to 12:50 now. Thank you for tolerating the technical difficulties that we experienced. Thank you for everybody who attended. Thank you to Skyla Goodson for paving the way. Thanks to Greg Ellinger for the intro. And, of course, thank you, Mr. Rich Freeland, for a terrific presentation. We will have this available on our SharePoint probably by end of business today. Joe Wynn has been kind enough to record this for us.
Okay, terrific. So let me just wish everyone, at the end of the year, it feels like every year they go fast, and but we've had a really good year as a company. I know you guys have all done a terrific job out there. It's never easy. Sometimes things are going slow and it's struggles there, and then sometimes things are going fast and you have a different set of challenges. But I know you all have responded to the market changes really well. And so I just want to thank everyone. I know everyone's worked really hard this year as we kind of wind down the year. So hopefully some of you can get some time out of here and some time with families and do a little refresh, and we'll come back and do it again in 2018. So thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.